Are you a bookworm? Do you like to read? Well, then you're in luck because the Bradford Memorial Library is hosting its annual Friends of the Library Book and Bake Sale at the end of this month. From April 26th through the 29th, that's Wednesday through Saturday, you can go down to the library and you can peruse their book sale, and you'll probably find several books that you can't live without. So the times will be from, Wednesday and Thursday from 4 to 7 p.m., and then on Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and then on Saturday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Now, little tip, if you're like me, don't wait till Saturday because all the good books will be gone. So go early, go often, go to the Friends of the Library Book and Bake Sale at the Bradford Memorial Library right there on Washington. Today we're here with Sergeant John Thompson to talk to us about the National Drug Take-Back Program and why it's important for you to participate this Saturday. So, Sergeant Thompson, what is the National Drug Take-Back Program?
That's for people that have either unused drugs or expired drugs or drugs they don't need anymore to bring out and dispose of them, and we send them off to the DEA to be properly disposed of.
Okay, and why is it important for citizens to participate in this program and not do something like flush their drugs down the toilet or just put them away in a cabinet somewhere?
Because if you put them down the toilet, it pollutes the water, the sewer system, and it gets into the system, and then sometimes you put them in your house, somebody may get a hold of them and it may harm them.
Sounds pretty straightforward. All right, so if I had some expired drugs that I needed to get rid of, how would I participate in this program?
You can come out to Walmart on April 22nd between 10 and 2 and get rid of any of the expired drugs or drugs that you don't want and dispose of them in a box. It'll be anonymous. Nobody knows who's doing it. They go in the box between 10 and 2.
Sounds good. So it's a pretty simple way of disposing of your drugs safely. As Sergeant Thompson said, keeps it out of our water supply, and it also keeps it so other hands can't get on your drugs that you may not be needing anymore. So again, Saturday from 10 to 2 at Walmart. We'll see you then. On Monday, the City Commission approved an agreement with KDOT authorizing a mill and overlay project that will extend from 6th Avenue North to McCollum Road. The mill and overlay project is set to begin sometime later this spring-summer season, and we'll have more information as it gets closer in proximity. On Monday, the City Commission also approved the annual mill and overlay program. As you may know, the city allocates $500,000 from its 1-cent sales tax to make mill and overlay improvements to various streets throughout the community. Many of these streets are residential streets, although some of them can be in arterial or collector streets. The primary consideration is that the street must be improved per the city's standards and specifications. You may not know it, but there is actually a K254 Corridor Association. The K254 Corridor Association is comprised of municipalities and local governments, school districts, commercial interests, and just interested citizens that reside along the K254 corridor between El Dorado and the city of Wichita. One of the things the K254 Corridor Association has been working on is partnering with KDOT to facilitate a corridor management study that will look at the entire K254 corridor to determine ways to make the corridor safer, as well as to prepare the corridor for economic development opportunities that will likely arise over the next 20 to 30 years. So it's a pretty extensive plan that the K254 corridor management study will entail, and that study has just received the notice to proceed from KDOT. What that means is that Garver is the consulting firm that will be heading up the corridor management study, and they will be putting together a process to get feedback from folks that live along the corridor and that utilize the corridor on a regular basis. So if you live in El Dorado and you use the K254 corridor, whether it's frequently or periodically, they're going to be looking for your input on ways to make that corridor safer, more efficient, and more effective for your transportation needs. Now, I don't have any specifics on the process for providing input at this time, but I do know that there will be a website that will be created by the consultant, and that will be made available in time for the summer input sessions that will be put on by the consultant. So as part of this show, we'll be providing you updates on the corridor management study so that you can be ready to provide input to allow all of those local stakeholders as well as KDOT develop a plan for the corridor, not only today, but for the foreseeable future. Now, the K254 corridor study is one of several transportation studies that are going on in our region. As I've mentioned before, the KTA and KDOT, as well as the City of El Dorado, are completing a study that's looking at the Boyer Road interchange, as well as the I-35 Turnpike connection, as well as K254, and some other connectivity in that general area of our community. This study will soon be completed, and when that's done, KDOT, KTA, and the city will have real good information for planning purposes to allow us to respond to industrial development or just general growth that may come to our region. So that's very exciting as well. In addition to that study, the City of El Dorado is currently in the process of interviewing firms for its very own local transportation master plan. And that plan will look at our local network and determine ways of making our local network work a little bit more efficiently, as well as identifying capital projects that will be needed both now and in the future, again, to facilitate better transportation access as we grow. So a lot of eyes are being looked at in this region as it looks at transportation, and we'll keep you updated on all of those studies as they move forward for our community. So you might say, why spend money on these studies? And I'll touch on that real briefly. It sometimes appears that the city and many government agencies spend a lot of money on planning, and sometimes these plans end up becoming plans that end up on a shelf. But the intent is definitely not to do that. The intent is to look at the existing conditions, anticipate future changes, and begin to make plans for capital investments needed to make the system operate more efficiently. So whether that's a transportation network, a water system, a sanitary sewer system, we can't make the proper investments that are necessary without looking at current conditions and anticipating those future needs. Now, unfortunately, sometimes those studies do sit on shelves. And that could be for a number of reasons. Maybe the catalyst that we were anticipating didn't quite come to fruition, or maybe we didn't find a suitable funding to make the necessary improvements. But what we are trying to do with these studies is identify what those needs are and then figure out how to program them into our capital improvement plan so that we can make the necessary investments to keep our community moving forward. Now, this is important because a lot of times capital improvement projects are quite expensive, sometimes upwards of millions of dollars. And so you want to make sure that you're making the right investment to manage your community for the long term. And so that does sometimes take some upfront capital or some upfront money in order to make that happen. But bear in mind that all the parties involved in all of these studies are doing so with the intent of taking that information and putting it to work for you, the taxpayer, so that our systems work more efficiently and we can serve our communities not only today, but well into the future. So we'll keep you updated on these studies and more as we move forward with a lot of our capital project needs. Well, that's all I got. So have a safe weekend, and we'll see you next week.